when a movie is not good or a book, well, this isn't the case with the book, but a lot of times with movies or with TV shows, almost 100% for sure, every time it's written by 3 or 4 people, because obviously they couldn't agree on anything. To me, art is not democratic. Art should call us to, something higher than that. It really is not about politics at all, and it's not about equality either. So I think when they're trying to do these woke projects, I think they're trying to present some sort of equality, or do you really think that they can make money on it, which tells me that they really are not in touch with anything.
Welcome to the New Flesh Podcast, the podcast you deserve. My name is Ricky Allpike. Joining me is the wonderful Jonathan Astro. Now, John, have you ever been a gutsy woman?
I feel like it's 2022. I should say yes.
Maybe on weekends.
Yeah. Just when I need to, I don't know, like get into women's prisons or their spaces mainly. I say I'm a gutsy woman, and they go, "Come on in."
Yes. Do whatever you want.
Yeah, do whatever you want. That's right.
Well, today we have Emina. Emina is back. Emina Melonic, to chat about a weird reality TV show called Gutsy, and also we're going to talk about a Cary Grant film as well.
Frank Capra.
Yes.
Let's get it on.
Emina Melonic is an adjunct fellow of the Centre of American Greatness. She is an unabashed cinephile and holds a Ph.D. in Comparative Literature and 3 master's degrees in Humanities from the University of Chicago, in Philosophy from the University of Buffalo, and in Theology from Christ the King Seminary. Her work as a writer and critic has appeared in American Greatness, The Spectator, Law and Liberty, The New Criterion, The American Mind, and National Review, and many more. She also has a Substack called The Magic Lantern, which you should all subscribe to right now. Emina, welcome back to The New Flesh.
Thank you so much. Thank you.
So, Emina, to celebrate 5 wonderful years of Me Too, the New York Times has written an extraordinary piece that I'd like to get your thoughts on. Just let me set it up for a second in case our readers haven't read it. The headline reads, "After Me Too reckoning, a fear Hollywood is regressing, the movement led to increased diversity and representation in the entertainment industry. But now there is worry that executives have turned their attention elsewhere." It's written by Brooks Barnes. So in short, the article explores whether the various gains from Me Too and George Floyd, that era, in terms of representation of women and minorities and the creation of more inclusive content, that the heat has died down on this movement because perhaps because of the economy and other factors, and that we'll see some kind of slip back into the bad old days. So it features anonymous quotes from Hollywood insiders who say things like, they hired women and people of color, some who were not qualified, and others said that the measures were an overcorrection, and there was also a sense that amongst Hollywood execs that these sort of woke projects didn't work, Bros and the cancelled Batgirl movie, and the list goes on. So do you have any thoughts of this article?
Yeah, I'm not surprised that these things didn't work, right? These projects that they're trying to do it. As I was reading about it, I thought to myself, well, the problem here is that they're starting with identity politics, right? And not really with the story. And so if you are trying to kind of have a superficial story or really sort of kind of on the surface, something that doesn't even have anything that the viewership can really grab onto. Same thing goes for books, really. And you're only basing it on something that's not necessarily, actually not something that's totally not elusive, right? They're kind of dehumanizing this identity. Then I don't know how it can really do well. I think there was something in the article that it said they had a Muslim superhero girl,
yes,
or superhero Muslim girl,
Miss Marvel. It's a Disney Plus show,
right? And, I'm a Bosnian Muslim, so, I'm not, and as a Bosnian Muslim, I'm saying right now, this is stupid. It makes no sense. It's like, you're just saying, oh, look, a Muslim, there's almost in an effort, I think this is true of the leftism, really, in an effort to be so inclusive, they end up offending everybody, actually, because they're reducing people to these stereotypes, But I saw that and I thought, I wouldn't want to see that. I couldn't care less, I mean, I don't like superhero stuff anyway. But if to do it, I wouldn't even see that. Yes.
Well, the frustrating thing about this article is the evidence and the references, and you just named one of them. I haven't seen Bros, but I've heard about it. She Said, actually the article seemed like a bit of a plug for its own people, because this movie She Said, I think, is about New York Times people, reporters looking into the Weinstein issue or whatever. And this other film, The Woman King, and the film Batgirl or whatever. Now, I haven't seen a bunch of these movies, but the problem is that the woke era has created, you can correct me if I'm wrong, I would say I think it's created no masterpieces. So all they can point to is Miss Marvel and all of that other garbage I just mentioned. There's no Clockwork Orange, Peeping Tom, Videodrome, Shop Around the Corner, Rashomon, Nashville. It doesn't matter. You take your pick from all around the world, all these masterpieces. There is no woke a film that we can hold up. And the best Hollywood movies, if we're just talking about Hollywood, are well received, and they make money. So I think the problem is they're talking about these films that make money. So the question is, do you think that woke content by its nature is unable to reach the heights of truly great work?
I think so. Yeah, absolutely. Because the story is not the main point here, right? Once you have a great story will appeal to everybody, right? And it won't matter actually whether a character happens to be gay or black or whatever, any sort of marginalized group you want to take a look at. It won't matter at all, because people can hold on to the humanity of this person, right? And I think that what they usually do is, again, they take these sort of identitarian, ways of looking at human beings and ultimately dehumanize them for the sake of ideology. And the story is gone. There's nothing you can really do about it. It's almost like sometimes I think that these projects are written by a group. Groupthink and group writing is the worst thing that you can come up with. There is nothing, when a movie is not good or a book. Well, this isn't the case with the books, but a lot of times with movies or with TV shows. And if it's really bad, you can certainly almost 100% for sure every time it's written by 3 or 4 people, because obviously they couldn't agree on anything. And the other part of all this is that, to me, art is not democratic. Art should call us to, something higher than that. It really is not about politics at all, and it's not about equality either. So, I think when they're trying to do these woke projects, I think they're trying to present some sort of equality, or they really think that they can make money on it, which tells me that they really are not in touch with anything at all.
Isn't it interesting, though, that we see in other countries, especially in South Korea, where we're seeing, I mean, for a long time, they have been just smashing it in terms of filmmaking. I know for our other podcast within a podcast, we reviewed a few Korean films, and, they seem to be just not concerned at all about diversity and 100% concerned with story and filmmaking and storytelling. And you saw that a lot, especially with the Squid Game, which came out on Netflix, that absolutely, everyone was watching that show. I mean, who would have thought that a show in Korean with subtitles would have such a huge sort of reach, especially in the US and also in Australia? I mean, do you think we need to look overseas and just, invest our time and our viewing in sort of overseas markets until America can kind of lift their game?
I think so. I mean, actually, Netflix has a lot of interesting European shows. A lot of Polish, Spanish, and German shows are on Netflix, actually. And there, I think you will find a lot of interesting stories, because they don't have these issues. Well, maybe not all of them, not all the countries, but certainly the stories don't focus on any of that sort of stuff that we see in America. And I think what we have in Australia too, in Britain. So I think so. I think that although there is a show that I started to watch just now on Netflix called The Sinner. And I don't know if you've seen it, with Bill Pullman. And I just finished watching the first season. I'm a little bit late into it. And it's an excellent story, but it's based on a German novel. So I thought, okay, that's why it's good. I know it's
No,
terrible, but
no, you're right though, because I like to think of it like RoboCop. He's got these prime directives, and in the second RoboCop movie, I don't know if you can remember it, they load him up with all of these junk prime directives. Like they say, go on, because that was the original era of political correctness in the early 90s. And so RoboCop's walking around, instead of doing what his job, which is serve the public trust, protect the innocent, uphold the law, he's doing community outreach. He's like policing people swearing. He's a terrible policeman, and he's doing all this dumb stuff. And the only way that he can get back on track is to wipe all of his prime directives. So I feel like when I watch, my wife was telling me about Elite, the Spanish I think it's a teen drama or something, but it's exactly as you say. It seems to be, they don't seem to be muddled with these junk prime directives. They're just making a show like it's the old days.
Right, that's a great way to put it. I don't remember RoboCop 2. Maybe
you need to brush up on your RoboCop 2.
I know, terrible. What kind of cinephile am I? But yeah, I think that you're right. They don't seem to be. It's almost if America is not almost. I think America is so repressed right now when it comes to these political issues. I think that there's no joy, there's no eros, there's no love, there's really nothing in that people are extremely repressed, and you have a kind of almost neo-Victorianism going on around here, and as a result, you don't have a good story that's going to perhaps disturb, perhaps make you feel elevated, perhaps make you think. I mean, this is all what we have learned from books too. It's not just movies or TV shows. So until I think people wake up to imagination, to the reality of imagination, because that's really what's missing, obviously, from any sort of woke stories. I don't think you're going to have a good story. You're not going to enjoy it. It's not going to capture the imagination, to use that phrase, but it won't capture us. Either thinking about these issues or feeling them. A good story makes you feel, I think. It makes you kind of go deeper. It almost, I use this very loosely, it almost shocks you into trauma sometimes, right? Where you're just awakened by something. The Sinner, I've used that as an example, certainly does that. And I was just so pleased to see that it's a story about these people that are so flawed, and some of them are miserable, and some of them are beautiful, and some of them are ugly. I'm talking about the inside of them and all that. And it was also a mystery, so it had a lot of different components, but it was something that you couldn't take your eyes off of. Right, that's a successful story, whether it's in a book or a movie.
You said the word there, Emina, before, imagination. This isn't a word we hear now. That's not a word that you watch all the interviews, you read any background, whenever people are talking about their shows or their books or whatever, no one ever praises imagination or talks about how to or the act of imagining or anything like that. It's always lived experience. It's always stay in your lane, always consultation, all these really creepy corporate words, in fact, you mentioned before I forget, about sort of things that are designed by committee. I saw a featurette, Ricky and I saw this featurette that from a Disney production of Star Wars they did a while ago, one of their offshoots, and they literally got a group of the wokest people together to create, it was like a woke Justice League that they got together. And they were all in this room, and there was no creative force. There was no, we'll get to this later, there was no name above the title, in the words that, as Capra used to say, it was just all of these people, presumably, I don't know, walking on eggshells around each other, just trying not to trigger each other.
Doesn't that sound like you're in prison? That sounds terrible. That kind of existence to me. To me, it just sounds like, why are you putting yourself through this, right? It just sounds like a complete prison of mind and of the heart.
Yeah.
I don't know. Yeah.
Well, to bring it back to the article, like I think it's interesting because they're obviously concerned that Hollywood will regress to a time before Me Too, the bad old days of Hollywood. Like, I mean, they've always been bad, but there's this
In
concern.
other words, the golden age of cinema when we made the best stuff.
But on the one hand, you have this concern for bad behaviour, particularly from men that are high up, sort of in the hierarchy of the film industry, and they sort of lump that in with representation in a strange way, like that just because perhaps these movies are going to pare back that representation just a little bit, so it's not so woke, so it's not so preachy, that in a way that will then open up the floodgates for more Harvey Weinsteins to kind of run around. It feels like a strange. It's just that it's like they're trying to put a square peg in a round hole or something. It just doesn't quite work.
Right. Yeah, I actually don't see the connection that they're making. It doesn't really matter. The whole idea, the whole point or point is not the right word. The whole aspect of Weinstein and Hollywood in general is the fact that a lot of people got their jobs through very awful, demeaning, undignified ways. And I think so if the objective here is to get woke issues into the movies, you're still going to have to hire somebody, and that somebody's still going to have to play the game, right? That's the whole point, that you're playing the game, that you're willing to lose some of yourself in order to be famous. So I don't see the connection of why less wokeism in the movies means more Harvey Weinsteinism, or
Yeah.
I don't know. What do you guys think? Do you agree? Or
Well, it's bizarre, the idea that this article I thought was extraordinary. I think it's an absolute playbook for how out of touch the New York Times is, and how and obviously people who are just blue through and through, how deluded they are as well. Like, I didn't understand anything, and so they've conflated a whole bunch of issues, which is what the last few years have been all about. It's about just saying, Harvey Weinstein and the lack of minorities in movies are related. Like, if only there were more black people on screen, then Gwyneth Paltrow wouldn't have had to have sex, allegedly, with Harvey Weinstein. And you go, well, this is crazy talk. And none of the stuff they've made is any good. And I just found the whole thing absolutely astounding. And this reporter just seems so horrified as well that when the execs are saying, we tried it, didn't work, didn't make money. Like, he's so surprised that Hollywood wants to make money.
right. Yeah, like, you mean the producer and investors, they want to have a return on what they've put in?
Yeah.
Wow, that's amazing.
They think it's a charity. They think it's just like, that's the point, of it. But even Hamlet had to sell tickets. Like, even Macbeth, that's why we've got ghosts and blood and all this stuff. It's not, like, those plays put bums on seats, as we say in Australia,
Right. You have to get people in, and Hitchcock understood this for sure. You got to create a huge sort of mystery around it, or something like that, right? Like, which is, I think he did that with Psycho, if I remember.
And you've got to get Grace Kelly.
Yes. Yes.
You've got to get the most beautiful woman in the world and go and put her in jeopardy and go, oh, and it's like, why would people want to watch that? And that's exactly what we want to watch.
Yeah. Exactly. There's a kind of exploitation sort of element to all of this, I think, to movies, depending. Okay. How about this? I wouldn't call Ingmar Bergman an exploitation film creator, but there are a lot of movies which don't necessarily belong in the exploitation B movie category, but like, let's say, Psycho, but Hitchcock certainly used the public opinion or the mystery around it to sell his film. I mean, he had to make money.
Yeah. Well, maybe to put a bow on it, like, I think if if people in the US or, cinephiles were to look a little bit further outside of their own boundaries and look overseas to cinema, they would see that cinema is a art form for the entire world. Every country makes movies. So if you want to see some representation, I mean, watch some films from Asia, watch some films from Africa. I mean, there's all your diversity right there,
Yes. Oh my goodness. That's an excellent point. That's exactly it. And that's an authentic diversity, right?
Yes.
You're going to watch something, see a German film, Swedish, whatever it is, right? And you're going to look at not only the experience of that particular nation, right? But also the experience as seen by that director. So the diversity is out there. I object to this false, forced diversity, as if I have to sit in a circle with somebody and hold hands. I mean, give me a break, leave me alone. It kind of turns you into almost a cynic. Like, it's like somebody saying, smile. No, it doesn't work that way. So.
But doesn't it frustrate? Well, just before we move on, doesn't it frustrate you because the people who are moaning on about this, they're ahistorical and quite ignorant, really, because if they had seen Tarkovsky and known that he made his movies under a terrible dictatorial regime in Soviet Russia, and masterpieces as well, by the way, or Kurosawa making, they conflate everything. So you could show them a Kurosawa movie and they would go, like Ran or something, and they'd go, oh yeah, that's samurais and that, yeah, that's good. And then you'd say, no, do you understand that people from his country hated him for making Western literature? Like there is nuance there. Like the nationalists in Japan were not cool with Kurosawa making Shakespeare adaptations. Okay, so it's stuff like this that. Or look at closer to home, John Cassavetes, right? Doing look at Shadows. Look how complex and dangerous and achievable that is.
Right.
So
right.
I'm just so fascinated, like how ahistorical and unread these people are. You know what I mean?
Yeah. It's like almost like a stupid myopia of stupidity or ignorance. Yeah, it really is like that. Yeah, Cassavetes ran into those problems. He's one of my favorite directors, but he ran into, when he was doing A Woman Under the Influence, he ran into issues when it comes to some sort of. He was not interested in ideology. I think he was a liberal. But there was zero interest in putting ideology into the movies, right? So I think that it was like A Woman Under Influence deals with working class people, but that was not the point of the movie at all. It absolutely is not. It's just like with most of his film, it's an exploration of womanhood, of being a wife, of being a mother. It has nothing to do with if you're working class or not. But people want to latch onto that, and suddenly it's about class or it's about feminism, it's about whatever. He utterly rejects this, right? So, I think that there's a level of ignorance. I completely agree with you. And also unwillingness to learn, actually. It's not like, I've had this with my students where when I was teaching high school and when I was teaching college, for the most part, I've always had good results with students because they just don't know about it. And you tell them, oh yeah, there's this movie or there's this book. And they're like, really? I didn't know. And then they really go into it. And only maybe a few here and there are just totally, utterly uninterested. They probably are not interested in anything in life, but which is very sad. But for the most part, I think that, for those who don't want to see and they don't want to learn, you're not going to change their minds, unfortunately. I mean, it's kind of sad, isn't it? But I have a feeling that they're not interested in meaning in life at all. So it's not just about art, or films.
Well, I think maybe we should move on to our next topic. We really want to talk about Gutsy. Now, we need to give an upfront apology to our audience because we're going to say the word Gutsy a lot. So sorry about that. Now, you recently wrote a scathing review of the Hillary Clinton, Chelsea Clinton 8-part reality TV show, which is called Gutsy. Which follows the lives of several famous media personalities who exhibit gutsiness. The show is based on a book called The Book of Gutsy Women, Favourite Stories of Courage and Resilience, which I believe is also written by Hillary and Chelsea Clinton. Is that right? Yeah.
I'm sure these books they have ghostwriters, you know,
Yes,
they have people
sure.
who are really writing them. Yes, but let's just say it's written by Hillary and Chelsea.
Well, at least their name's on it, at least. Can
Yes.
you maybe give us a brief overview of this terrible sounding show?
Oh. Well, first of all, I have to say I deserve a huge pay, you know, for watching that stuff. And I was joking with my editor. I said, you know, she said, you need hazard pay. I said, I do. Do you realize that I was texting her, you know, as I was watching these. I said, and I think I watched like 6 episodes and I thought it was the last one. And there were, I think, 2 or 3 more. And I said, no, there's 3 more of this I have to see. Help me. But I have my integrity as a reviewer, as a writer. I absolutely have to see the whole thing. I'm not going to, you know, review something that has not been looked at in its entirety. So I did. But it was, you know, it was interesting actually, because interesting in a sense that what it revealed was that Hillary was kind of tossed aside, you know, and Chelsea sort of in the foreground, like showing this poor boomer mom, you know, who can't even use her phone and send an email. You know, what is email? You know, kind of.
She knows what the emails are.
Yeah, oh yes, she does. Yeah, exactly. She sure does. But it you know, she was kind of presented almost like this poor woman who's not with it, right? Who's really she needs to move with the society and listen to some rap music, and it's awkward. It's so awkward. You almost feel sorry for Hillary, almost, because Chelsea is really almost like denying the years and the decades of political machinations that her mother has done.
She was the Secretary of State. This woman's like, she was like there when Osama bin Laden was being,
I mean, you can agree or disagree, hate her, not hate her, whatever it is. She's been in politics for a long time and she plays that game. So to see Chelsea kind of almost go, oh, poor mom, she just needs to, I don't know, have a cup of tea and you know, do something over there in the corner. It felt like that to me. I thought, wow, this girl, this young woman really thinks that she is better and smarter and cooler. It was all about really being cooler, right? And it was interesting to see how this new generation of leftists, if you will, is saying to the boomers, step away. You know, this is not your world anymore. We're doing our own progressive philosophy right now.
Okay, here we go. We're hitting the road to shine a light on women who inspire us to be bolder and braver.
Leadership doesn't look one way. It's a giant rainbow.
You're not gonna break me down. You'll get worn out before I do.
Women who push us outside our comfort zone.
You got this.
And make us laugh.
I'm in deep Georgia, and they might have never met a Muslim.
Or they don't know they have.
Or they don't know they have, because we walk among you.
You have a marriage that has been on public display since the beginning. You said the gutsiest thing you ever did was stay in your marriage.
That doesn't mean that's right for everybody.
To throw someone's life away when people really do make changes. I just believe in second chances.
My mother needed rehabilitation, not prison.
Your survival is your power.
Someone say to me, you're not good enough because you have melanin. How dare you?
I have a master's in whites. I just want whites to get a GED in blacks.
If there was ever a time for change.
Every single person makes some impact on the planet every single day. We can choose what sort of difference we make.
Speak truth to power. When I throw rocks, I'm throwing them up.
We're gonna go buy the house where we got married. This is where it all started. And the rest is history.
Cheers.
By putting down the bad things and lifting up the good things, we bring balance to the world.
You literally become one with yourself.
I'm gonna live like I've never lived before.
But isn't Chelsea Clinton a bit of an elder millennial Karen herself now?
Yeah. She actually actually, she was, how old is she? Is she 42?
She'd be 40, definitely.
40, you think so? Okay.
Yeah, 40s, yeah.
Something like that. But anyway, she actually came off to me as a kind of a prude. And I get into that neo-Victorianism, where there's really no enjoyment. It was all just about scolding you, for not being good, or she came off as a moralist in the thing and in the series, and Hillary actually came off as somebody who has some sense of humor, which is unbelievable. But still, it was very. I hate to use the word cringy, but they were saying the word gutsy so many times. I really forgot what the name of the show was, so I had to be reminded every single time.
Well, it sounds like like they didn't spend much time finding real unknown or interesting women to highlight, So maybe I'll just give a list of guests, for our listeners. So they spoke to comedian Amy Schumer, comedian Wanda Sykes, rapper Megan Thee Stallion, Glennon Doyle, whose claim to fame is leaving her husband to marry a former female soccer player, influencer Kim Kardashian, who has gone back to college to study law, although I think she's failed the bar several times. Feminist Gloria Steinem, chimpanzee researcher Jane Goodall. You've got a drag queen in there as well. I mean, what a strange mix of women. You've got, not just one comedian, but two comedians. Then, a vapid influencer, a rapper, and a drag queen, who is a biological man, by the way, which, how 2022 is that? So what do you think the real aim of the show is? Is it to beat up on middle America some more, to stick it to the deplorables? Is that what it's all about?
I think so. They certainly had a few things to say about Trump. They got right into that immediately, and then they said some bad things about Reagan. You got to do that too.
Reagan as well.
It was, yeah, like something about the justice system or about crime. I don't even remember exactly what it was, but it was like, he did bad things. And I mean, it's just your typical, usual, leftist nonsense that we hear. But what struck me is the fact that actually most people that they interviewed really didn't want to be around Hillary or Chelsea. The body language betrays it. You can really tell. And actually, you can almost tell that Hillary and Chelsea don't know, or Hillary doesn't really want to be there either. And so why they really did this, I really have no clue. To give them something to do, I don't know. But there was a kind of progression. It was very predictable as to where the story's going. So there were a few women actually there. There was one woman, I can't remember her name now, but she's a mountain climber. She climbed Mount Everest, and she had they sort of framed it around the fact that she was sexually abused, and kind of found herself in all of that in climbing. And actually, it was an interesting story, to be honest with you. I found her to be an interesting woman as an explorer, as a mountain climber, and. But then at the end of it, basically says how she started some foundation to help people that are sexually abused. And actually, honestly, I think, and that's what every single one of these women was doing. Like they overcame something, then they started the foundation. Overcame something, started the foundation. It was like and maybe they,
rinse
it was
repeat.
actually, it was actually really irritating, because I just wanted to hear the story, and it made me think. Why does everything has to end in some sort of payback, if you will, or pay forward, or whatever they call it? Just kind of maybe payback is not the right word. What do you think?
It's got to end in some sort of corporate entity has got to get involved. So you need to make sure you're I don't know. Yeah, why has everyone got to put such a I don't know, like starting a foundation, starting a charity, for setting up a grant system or whatever. Why can't it just be, we are complex creatures as humans. You understand that, like at the end of The Karate Kid, if Daniel started a karate school for struggling karate students, I know that they've sort of ended up doing that in the new one, whatever. But the whole point of the first, that's why it sucks. The point is that after he does the kick, He says, if I don't do this, Mr. Miyagi says, no, you did it. Like you're all good. You don't have to go out there. And he's like, no, if I don't do this, then I'm nothing. It doesn't mean anything. Then something inside is not going to be okay. And when we kick, we understand that on an emotional level, that he is complete now and ready for the world. And I don't need him to set up his foundation.
Yes, that's exactly it. It's this story of this individual, singular human being, right? That is the inspiration enough, or that you find fascinating, or whatever it is, right? That you find yourself to be uplifted from this story. And that's why I found this woman who climbed Mount Everest. I thought, wow, that's just so fascinating. That's wonderful, right? I thought it was a great story. But then, they had to muck it up with this. I guess, why does it always have to be this larger? What are you doing for the society? It's a very kind of moralistic thing, like as if individuals can't just be themselves. There's nothing wrong with starting a foundation or a charity. Okay, obviously not, but it's said in such a way that if you're not doing it, you're bad. Right? If you have had success, then you better give that success back in some way.
Do you think it sort of sets up this expectation that not only do you have to overcome struggles in your life, that the end goal is then to pay it forward and to be this media personality who has a foundation? It's not enough anymore just to overcome adversity and be a complete human being.
Yes, that's exactly it. Because most of those women there, I actually did a little bit of research. There was that one woman who was shot 10 times by her, either a boyfriend or a fiance. I forget what he was, but she was pregnant at the time. She became a cop, then she became a detective. She survived, obviously. Another interesting story, actually, but then she's now just a speaker. She just goes around telling her story. I can't imagine anything more boring, to be honest with you. I think we have to talk about ideas. We have to there's nothing wrong with, sharing your story, but at the same time, we have to figure out, otherwise there's just a bunch of motivational speakers going around having TED Talks.
So, Emina, I'm finding the Democrats increasingly more odious by the day. And this, I got to thinking about it when I was watching this trailer, because this is a very sort of corporate elite Democrat Party pamphlet, if you will. So they seem to be rich, as I say, corporate elites who have this unquestioned reputation of being the most caring people in politics, along with the complete fawning support of the mainstream media, Hollywood, publishing, and music. So the entire apparatus is behind them with everything they say, Apple in this case. They've not delivered universal healthcare, which they, it doesn't matter what anyone believes, that's what they believe. So it's like they haven't delivered that. They voted it down. Even their most leftist people voted it down. They've got soft policies on crime and homelessness that have caused immeasurable suffering. And worst of all, they're proving to be quite sore losers. And have the Democrats, and particularly gutsy women, Dems like the Clintons, have they gotten worse over time, or have they always been this way and I just didn't know?
That's a good question. They probably have. Well, they're getting more rancid as they get older, probably.
But I remember, I used to like the West Wing, right? I used to love the West Wing, and around that time, to be the best and brightest Democratic guy was a dream. It was the dream.
Right.
And I know that there were people who didn't like that, but they were not as, I don't know, like, to me that just didn't make sense. I was like, how could you not want to be part of this group of, now I kind of watch it and I feel like they're a bit overbearing, but
right.
But I wonder if I've changed over time or what.
I think that Hollywood likes to capture Democrats exactly as they're not, right? I think that's the, these shows like West Wing, and one of my favorite movies actually is American President with Michael Douglas and Annette Bening. It's a great movie. It really is.
Wonderful.
But, it really is not, usually Democrats don't act that way. They're not as honorable or noble. But I don't know. A lot of the stuff that was perhaps revealed by Trump, by Trump's presidency, the fact that he even got elected, revealed a lot of elitism in the Republican Party as well. So maybe a lot of that stuff is just a nice story that people are supposed to take on and then pick a side, between Republican and Democrat. Maybe it's all part of almost a fantasy or a narrative. But in any case, I do think that for the most part, though, the way Democrats are portrayed is usually not the case. And to go back to the Me Too movement, the Me Too movement really damaged mostly Democrats,
yes,
and mostly liberals.
Jeffrey Toobin.
Yes, which shows you actually where the bad behavior is. But seriously, I mean, I can't think of. That's right, Bill O'Reilly. They got him on some sort of sexual harassment thing. He said something or other.
But Matt Lauer certainly wasn't a Republican.
No. Definitely not.
The list goes on. There was that guy. Did Al Franken? Is he?
Yes, Al Franken, Charlie Rose.
Charlie Rose.
Watched his show so many times. Now you look at some of the stuff, you go, that guy was doing that while he was doing the show. And have you?
No, go on.
Have you noticed that most of these things that these guys did are really gross and just disgusting and so weird, just perverted, Just sort of like this isn't even like some good hedonism or something. It's just sort of weird, You're a weirdo. Yes. Why are you doing that? So
it's all Last Tango stuff. All weird stuff. Like they've skipped out just a good old-fashioned, one-on-one romance, and they've gone to all the weird, props and all strange stuff immediately.
But that West Wing era was pre-social media, though. So I feel as though, this shrill Democratic
Anthony Weiner.
Anthony
How did we get him?
Yes,
that's right.
He was another one.
Yes.
But I just think social media has made it worse. Has made that gutsy Democratic woman more shrill and more insufferable. And has polarized both sides.
I think so. Rush Limbaugh. I don't know if you've listened to Rush. He really had some quite interesting things to say about people like Hillary, and he had some wonderful phrases that I could not possibly come up with, but he came up with feminazi and stuff like that, but he knew how to describe them in a nutshell. And it's a certain kind of a woman. I find them to be kind of devoid of eros, devoid of sexuality almost. Either they are anti-men and maybe they're lesbians, or maybe they're kind of just asexual, in a way. They find some sort of release just from politics and from power.
And drone strikes.
Yeah. That's right.
Because that's the weird thing about these Dems, particularly someone like Hillary Clinton, total war hawks.
Yes. Yeah.
Yes.
So her husband's busy, getting, doing what he's doing in the Oval Office. I won't say it. I mean, we all know what went on. And meanwhile, she gets a little 5 feet from the place, and is like, anyway, what would be good? Drone strikes. more drone strikes than we've ever done in the history of drone strikes.
She actually said the gutsiest thing she did was to stay with Bill. And
why didn't she say, to kill Osama bin Laden? That would be way more rock and roll.
Yeah.
You kind of go, that would make her more like these presidents that we like Andrew Shepard in The American President, because at the end, what do? They always have them, and Jed does it in The West Wing. There's always a moment where they show their balls, and they go, they sort of they have a hard edge that dare I say a conservative edge that comes out when it needs to appropriately, and then goes, and then they can become the nice scholar again.
Right. Yeah. But there's not a lot of substance there, right? That's the whole point. I don't think so. That's what I got from this in any case. Not that I expected substance from this whatever series of, is it 8 parts? And see, I don't even remember how many episodes, but there were so many.
Too many.
There were too many. It was just an exercise in awkwardness, I think, of huge generation gap, and just actually taking culture that's really below human dignity. Like some of this rap music, what is Megan Thee Stallion?
Yes. Charming.
Oh, it was
single, I believe.
Yes, and she's saying Hillary is telling her how she really didn't listen to that particular song. Am I allowed to say it on podcast? What
you
it is? You
can say whatever you like.
Okay, so I don't know what the title of it, but it involves wet pussy. And I read the lyrics of it, and knowing that Hillary's trying to listen to this is actually really hilarious. And actually turns out that the lyrics were, isn't it right? And the lyrics were mostly written by men. So
really?
Yes,
wow.
I think so. I think a few other rappers. I did a little bit of research, and I thought,
that is the smoking gun.
Yes, you guys are not gutsy at all. You're just trying to make money, and you have been branded by some other studio and say, hey, why don't we just do this? We'll do the strong woman who controls sex trope, or I don't know, whatever they come up with. But it's pretty boring. I mean, I don't like rap. I'm not a fan at all, actually. But this was just we're supposed to elevate this. I'm supposed to say this is culture.
Well, if you don't like WAP, then that not only does that make you a misogynist, it also makes you a racist.
That's right. All in one.
I've done a quick Wikipedia search on WAP, and it seems that in addition to Cardi B and Megan Thee Stallion, you've also got 4 other men who are credited as songwriter.
Yes.
Wow.
Yes. Which probably means that they wrote it.
Yeah,
mostly.
You're probably right.
Yeah.
Well, look, I think let's just quickly move on from WAP while we've got a bit of time, because as much as I'd like to talk about, Hillary Clinton a little more, I think I want to get into this piece you've written for American Greatness entitled "The House of Funny Horrors." Since it is Halloween after all, and you suggest an unlikely Halloween film, Arsenic Old Lace, directed by Frank Capra and starring Cary Grant. So just in case our audience hasn't seen it, can you tell us a little bit about the film?
So the film, I believe, is based on the play, and the writer of the playwright, I cannot now remember the name, but so the idea here is Cary Grant plays a bachelor, a guy who is a drama critic, right, or a critic in New York, and he's written all these books that are anti-marriage and how marriage is a sham and a fraud and all that stuff. And the film opens with the scenes that he's trying to get married under disguise, and he gets married. He goes to tell his aunts, and he finds that there's a dead body in the window seat. And that's sort of what starts the whole horror comedy, if you will, of him trying to figure out who killed this man. It turns out that it was his aunts, and it turns out that what these sweet little old ladies do in their pastime is, kill off lonely men and saving them from their miserable lives. So. It just kind of it really is more of a comedy. Although I have to say the inclusion of Peter Lorre and Raymond Massey as Boris Karloff, I guess, looking like Boris Karloff, definitely brings another sort of a gothic level to it. But it's a fun movie. It really is, and it's Cary Grant. I can watch him in anything. He could read a phone book. I'd watch it, but he's just. He's very over the top here, and he didn't like that he was over the top, but I still think the movie works. Capra just wanted him to be like really playing it up.
We're married. Elaine and I are married.
You're married? How wonderful. Oh.
Did everybody in Brooklyn know I was going to get married except me?
Oh, we knew you'd find out about it in time.
Come here. I've got the 2 nicest aunts in the world. Hey, mister. Abby! There's a body in the window seat.
Yes, dear. We know.
You know?
The gentleman died because he drank some wine with poison in it.
You put it in the wine? Just want to know what we're going to do. Can't turn you over to the police. You know how we've always planned to send Teddy to that sanitarium? Charge! Teddy's got to go to Happydale now.
I'm off to Panama. A new lot for the canal, you know.
You mean you're going to bury Mr. Hotchkiss in the cellar?
Oh, yes, dear. That's what we did with the others.
Others? More than one others? Elaine!
What is wrong? Look at your hair.
Oh, my goodness, what color is it? Quick, is it turned? You get out of here.
You can't marry me one minute and throw me out of the house the next.
Oh, darling, I'm not throwing you out of the house. I'm not throwing you out of the house. Will you get out of here?
It's your brother Jonathan.
I've come back home, Mortimer.
Johnny, we can't leave her dead body in the rumble seat. We got a hot stiff on our hands.
The guy stays away for 20 years and picks the night on them all nights to come back. He gods, there's another one!
The old ladies is just as good as you are. You got 12, they got 12.
I've got 13.
No, Johnny, 12. Don't brag.
Mortimer! I almost got killed.
Killed? And Abby and Martha.
Oh, no, it was Jonathan.
How can I believe you? There are 12 men down the cellar and you admit you poisoned them?
Yes, I did. But you don't think I'd stoop to telling a fib?
Look, I probably should have told you this before, but you see, well, insanity runs in my family.
Look at your aunts. They're Brewsters, aren't they? And the sweetest, sanest people I've ever known.
Yeah. Well, even they have their peculiarities.
I have to admit, I'm not fully across Cary Grant's filmography, but I've never seen him in a role like this, like kind of a silly role.
He's Philadelphia Story, I would say, is probably, Bringing Up Baby is probably the closest, I would say, to this kind of like over the top. But here he's really just, with the facial expressions and with trying to figure out, how to, why are his aunts doing all of this stuff? But I don't know. I think it's talking about the story, right? The fact that it's a great story. It grabs you. It makes you laugh. It's a little scary too, and I think Capra understood this. And it's not. And I think I wrote in my article that there are different ways of looking at this, and I found some academics or some critics saying that it's about American anxiety over America's uneasy past and stuff like that. And I don't know. I really don't like it when you have this theory that's anti-American that's placed into a movie which has nothing to do with anything, and it's just taking. It's basically saying like the director was subconsciously aware of this. How do you know what he was aware of? We don't know that at all, actually. So unless I see it in the evidence, I can just, theorize all I want.
It's clearly, it's if anything, it's about it could be about any number of things as well as just being a romp and a caper. But it is, to me, I really got this time watching it. I got a sense of the horror of coming to grips with your crazy family. And the idea that you might be as crazy as them, because everyone in this family, or we won't spoil the ending, but everyone in this family is a different kind of crazy. Whereas, and it was back when you could call someone who thinks they're Teddy Roosevelt crazy. Now I don't know. You'd give them drugs and move them to San Francisco, I guess. Is what we do. And just say live on the street instead.
Oh, if only we were dealing with people who thought they were Teddy Roosevelt today.
I know,
I think
charming, crazy people.
I know, charming, crazy people. Yes. No, it's true, right? Cary Grant is wondering. His character is wondering. Am I also going to go crazy? But of course, it turns out he's not related to them at all.
It is, but I didn't like that. I know that seemed like of the time, a way of getting out of it. I think it would be the only thing I would change is to leave him related, because it's you should be able to escape it without having to you know what I mean, without having to not be related to them. Like it changes
right.
It changes it
Changes.
slightly.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. All right.
Yeah. I think it would be funnier that he's sort of bringing in his wife to that craziness, you know.
Yes.
That would be, you know, a better ending, I think.
Yes, I think so.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, my favorite character is Cary Grant's brother, Teddy, who is convinced that he's President Roosevelt. You know, the charging up the stairs,
Yes.
the bugle, and the general interactions with his family members who just seem to accept him for who he is. That's all great. Do you have a favorite character? Who's your favorite?
That's a good question. Maybe I'd have to go with Cary Grant because I just like him so much. But I don't know. I think they're all. I think everybody is somehow contributing something to the film, right? Even the poor men that end up dead. Peter Lorre was great. I mean, they actually played up a little bit that whole the whole German thing, right? The fact that he's a foreigner and he looks weird. And I found actually that these prejudices, if anything, of these old ladies, you know, sweet little old ladies, were sort of made fun of. Actually, that the prejudices.
I knew he was foreign, and
Yes.
that's a laugh line. That's you going, oh, they you know.
Yes, I don't think that's like supposed to be like, oh yes, we should accept that. You know, like when they said like, oh, he's a Methodist or he's a Lutheran. I forget who they were talking about exactly, but that's you know, that's why he's like that, right? So it's charming and it's funny and it's harmless, you know. But at the same time, I think that it's not supposed to be. It's not a moral story, you know. It's not this. And to go back to what we were saying, why does everything have to have a moralistic sort of end of some kind of justice that everybody's always trying to get at? And sometimes things are just funny and aesthetically pleasing and separated, I think, from a lot of political issues, you know.
Well, I found some of the references to like death and the sinister suggestions and references to torture. I found that even a little bit shocking, even though this film is from 1944.
Mm-hmm.
Do you have any idea what audiences made of it when it first came out?
I don't know. I haven't researched it. I think the movie did well, from what I understand. I think I mentioned in the article, it definitely made some money.
Yes, well, you mentioned it had a box office of approximately 5 million and a budget of 1 million. So, I mean, that's a success.
I think so. And one thing I don't think I said this in the article, but one thing I was so impressed with is the fact that the movie was made actually, I think, a year before, and then it was shelved, and then they released it. But which is it's 1944, right? That's when it came out, and most of the money that Cary Grant got from it, he donated to the war effort.
Oh wow!
So almost everything. I think he was paid. I think he was like left with maybe $40,000 or something like that. He basically gave away almost all of the money, and you know, he didn't really talk about it, but he was, I think, that kind of a man. And I was just so. It was just so touching.
Nowadays, he'd set up a foundation and he'd put his money into that.
Open up a Twitter page, tell everybody how he's doing it. You know.
Kids who need to transition.
That's right.
Underline the word need. They need to transition now.
They need, yes. Yes.
So
exactly.
where does this film sit for you in Capra's oeuvre? Is this better than his Americana pictures, do you think?
I think it's different, isn't it?
I should ask, do you like his Americana movies?
I do. I really, it took me a while to warm up to It's a Wonderful Life. I don't know why. Maybe because maybe it was too, maybe I was mad that Jimmy Stewart didn't end up, you know, going off into the world and doing something. And here he is trying to save these people that don't want to help themselves.
I wrestle with this every year. I show it to my family, and I've got arguments from we have arguments about whether he should have left or stayed, you know, in It's a Wonderful Life.
Yeah.
And we haven't quite solved it, you know.
It's a tough one, isn't it? I mean, it is about obviously the power of the human spirit and the meaning, and it's about gratitude. That's what the film is about, I would think. But at the same time, you know, these people are such complainers, and he's trying to carry them all, and it gets a little bit frustrating. I mean, this was a tough movie. I don't think the movie did well, if I remember correctly, reading about it. But it was a tough year for Jimmy Stewart because he had terrible post-traumatic stress, and he was suffering from the war. He was suffering from incredible depression. I mean, just awful. And the movie kind of saved him in a sense because he went back to work. But the movie didn't do well. But it's interesting how it parallels in some way his life, because his father wanted him to stay and manage the hardware store in their town.
Wow.
And he left. He left and, became an actor, and we know what the rest of the story is, right?
It's funny about that PTSD. I'm a huge Jimmy fan. He's probably my favorite actor. And I think that film it's got definitely two of the greatest scenes he's ever done in his entire career, and one of them would be when he comes home. I love this scene. He comes home to his family, and he's had that. He's lost all the money. He can't find the money, and he has to deal with his family. It's when he snaps at them. That scene is just absolutely incredible. And on the other side of the spectrum, I think him on the phone, the sexy scene with him on the phone with Donna Reed, where they're both sharing the receiver. That's one of the arguably one of the sexiest scenes of the era, because they're that close, and they've found this way of getting around the senses of having them that close, having to talk to stupid Sam on the phone, and it's just a glorious scene.
Yes, I agree with you. I agree. Yeah, no, I think it's a movie about love, isn't it? In many ways, right? But, so I do struggle with some of the sort of more practical matters of it, whether he should have stayed, but what kind of the two different divergent paths of life, right? What life could he have had if he left? He can only wonder, but there's still happiness, I think, that obviously happens in the film.
Just before we wrap up, Emina, people are shocked when I tell them that Frank Capra was a Republican, and that Hollywood's increasingly shunned conservatives. But you can think of obviously John Wayne, Eastwood, whatever. But isn't the world better with It's a Wonderful Life in it, or and Ricky and I are big fans because we're saps of Bridges of Madison County, which is a very sweet movie. I'm better for having seen that. Whereas I feel like now, because of that line in the sand, if you're a Republican, you can make arguments that you're not shunned and wiped out, but you are really. You're not going to be able to make. Bridges of Madison County. You're not going to be able to make It's a Wonderful Life. You're going to have to make some independent film, and you're going to have committed backers, if you know what I mean.
Right. I think also people have lost the sense of that imagination, what we were saying earlier, and also of what can be touching. There's a lot of cynicism and kind of hardness, and yet not even cynicism that's grounded in anything. It's just kind of almost I'm not impressed with anything, right? So I think because there's a lack of that emotion, people can't even respond to those movies anymore. Not everybody, of course, but the culture itself is refusing in many ways to respond emotionally to life, and we're trying so hard to fight the emotion and suppress the emotion and suppress love and sex through so many different means, whether people use substances to do that, and now I find it through transgenderism also. Nobody wants to really look at themselves in a mirror and feel the life, and I think these movies like It's a Wonderful Life or so many others, I mean, especially the movies from the golden age of Hollywood, right? They had a way of dealing with reality, and yet they were so emotional too, so they stay with you. They stay with your being, right? And then you have to see them again. So that's the beauty of them.
Well, you mentioned the fact that Republicans are shunned from Hollywood. We are seeing a few organisations, one of which the Daily Wire, who they're a conservative news outlet, but they are starting to fund films and TV shows. I don't know. Are you aware of this, Emina?
No.
Have you seen any Daily Wire?
Oh, Daily Wire. Yes.
films?
Sorry.
Yeah.
What is it? What did I do?
Terror
What is
on
a
the
woman?
Prairie?
Oh, yeah. The film. No, I haven't seen them. But I know that they're doing some of them. Yes, I mean, conservatives are not the best at making movies. That's the reality. Unfortunately, they don't have the aesthetic eye that a lot of liberals do. Most artists are liberals because I think to be an artist you have to have a certain different consciousness. Conservatives are more analytical people, and they're kind of dealing with principles. But that also can
we need those Malibu conservatives like John Milius. Like we need someone who. It's sort of got that conservative, or rather grandiose conservative.
Yeah, he likes to hunt and fish, and he likes to shoot things.
Right.
But,
like a weird grandiose conservatism, as opposed to
I guess so.
A fiscal conservatism.
A fiscal yeah, I don't know. I think it's maybe people should just be themselves and be okay with that, and not to take on, all these.
I'm with you.
Yeah, I think it's
okay.
okay.
I think what's interesting about the Daily Wire, I think, is that they are starting to attract people who would have maybe a decade ago consider themselves on the left, but because that sort of that distinction between left and right, has kind of been smashed, or it's been moved so wildly that they no longer can sort of work in that sort of leftist environment. That they're seeking out places like
even
the Daily
Rob
Wire,
Schneider. Not even he can make, stuff, because he played all those, famously played all minorities, and and he's like, I can't do that anymore. They won't let me. He's like, my mother's Filipino, and I can't even do that.
Right. Exactly. No, yeah, I know. I mean, right now the leftists are not making good movies, absolutely at all. I've you deal with liberals in Hollywood or with in movie industry because they make great films and they're great artists. And if I actually went by politics of many novelists, filmmakers, actors, etc., I would not watch or read anybody. That's the truth, because most of them I don't agree with their politics at all. But I really kind of keep my distance from that if I want to see something. So yeah, I mean, I think that conservatives should make movies. I'm not saying that. I'm just I'm always a little bit trepidatious with that, because their aesthetic visions sometimes are not as powerful as people who are sometimes on the left, if that makes any sense. So,
but maybe what we're talking about to put a bow on it is the idea. I mean, I'm with you. I just want movies to be movies. I want stories to be stories. In other words, you should have the courage to go into whatever world you want, regardless of politics, and have that story go wherever it goes. And and we used to love that. We used to love people who, probably were Democratic donors or whatever, but they probably made really, really almost fascist films, like could be anything, like Death Wish or something. Like, I'm sure, like the idea is that you just want free reign to explore all of human experience and to come up with troubling answers to life's questions.
Right. Exactly. We're all human beings. And I think that's really, well, some of us are, some people aren't. No, seriously though, joking aside, it's true though. We just let us see human stories, here. And that's what makes great art, I think. It can be disturbing. It can be, I don't mind that. I mean, I love David Lynch. I just wrote a long essay on Lost Highway, actually, that's going to appear in Modern Age. So, I think that it's perfectly okay. I am completely open-minded to these experiences as I'm watching them. What I absolutely hate is ideology, and I hate simplification of human beings. And I think we're quite complex, creatures. So that's the beauty of it.
I heard Lars von Trier say this. He was talking about the idiots being questioned about, what it means, and they were bringing in all these issues, like you say, and he said, it's not it's a movie about a group of people with there's a lot going on. It's not a commercial for an idea.
Right.
Like, I haven't made a commercial for an idea.
Right.
It's a lot. It's a lot of actual characters and all of their story.
Right.
Well, I don't think we can ask you to stay any longer, Emina. We've covered so much today. Thank you so much.
Well, thank you. I love talking to both of you. It's always a pleasure. It's like talking to two friends, you know. It's wonderful. It really is.
That's great.
And I have to say, I was telling my husband about it today, you know, as we were telling him we're going to be doing this tonight. And I said, you know, these two guys, they're such classy guys. You know, they are just they wonderful conversation. And I said, you know, there are so many people in this business that are not good people, and you guys are not that. I really truly enjoyed it, and you are incredibly respectful and have a great sense of humor, and I love what you're doing and keep doing it, really truly.
That's so meaningful. Thank you, Emina.
Yeah, thank you.
So
yeah,
much.
that means a lot. Thank you for listening to the New Flesh podcast. If you like our work, please consider rating us on Apple Podcasts or even writing us a review. It really does help the show reach a wider audience. We'll be back with another episode next week. Until then, long live the New Flesh.